So hello again, welcome back to vlog number 3. So this week I'll be doing a more in-depth site analysis. I'm really homing on in certain areas of where I want some interventions. As you can see in the background there is just some of my mood board and some of my ideas, and I'll be going into depth of sort of my ideas for the space and why. So I'll see you in a bit. So we are by my mood board now. So what I like to do is just to get all my ideas in one space so that I can work out and compare what ideas are better, what I like, and I like to use string to link to show that I'm making a connection here and making a connection there. So I will move on now and explain my mood board. Hello, so I've just zoomed you in a bit better so that you can see the images a bit better. So I'm starting over here, which is Leeds Town Hall. So what I gathered from research and site analysis is that over here there is outdoor chessboards, which is nice. So the aim of my design is to make it very cultural and communal. So I think introducing games really gets that communal feel, gets people to interact with one another. So that's a nice feature to already have on the site. Here people protest. So what I also noticed is that these plant beds here aren't working too well at the moment. So that was something to think about. And also, right next to Leeds Town Hall is a war memorial, and then behind the war memorial there is a art gallery. There has been some art interventions previously, like temporary art installations, but they haven't necessarily had anything to do with the war memorial. So my first thoughts is I want people to go to these art galleries, but I also want them to celebrate these war memorials. So I thought, why not create an art installation that celebrates them both? So my first thoughts is maybe these big poppies, or something I was leaning more towards. I'll just take this off just because I don't think it fits in the camera frame. Is to create these lamps because the hedgerow is quite linear. I thought it would be quite nice to have sort of these art installation poppy lights that lead from the war memorial up to Dorman Square. On Leeds Town Hall, light events happen, so I really like that aspect. It really gets the community together, and there is hundreds of people that come and watch these light shows. So creating a art installation which is a bit further over down here, that is interactive, people could have a play about, linked quite nicely to the art light events that happen. But as you can see on this one, like, people are sitting in there, they're playing about in here, and it's just a bit of fun. So those are Cookridge Street. So here, I don't know whether you can see that, I might zoom you in just a little bit more just briefly. So these are the planters this is the new development that you have seen in my other vlogs that I went to. So I kind of wanted to celebrate that new development, and I thought maybe I could do this by using a certain type of paving. So I quite liked this idea here. So if I just move you here quick. So these kind of resemble, especially this one, what Cookridge Street is all about. And I quite like this use of tiling. Like, I think it coincides with it quite well. And I think if I was to use this sort of paving, like this geometric type paving, all the way down to Dorman Square, Newbrigate, I think it would link quite nicely to Cookridge Street. So that's another idea that I was considering. What I noticed in the hedgerow is that the path randomly widens, and it's actually quite large of a pathway, and doesn't necessarily need to be that wide. So what I was thinking, to better utilise that space, I would just have little pockets of green space that kind of resemble Cookridge Street, but I think I want to vegetate it a bit more. But I think by doing that, I think it would already almost give the place a facelift, as it's quite grey and brown as current. In my dissertation, I spoke about green walls and roofs. I'm still maybe considering that for the car park, as in the roofs, but through research I discovered that the hedgerow is quite famous for its red brick, so I think doing green walls will take that away from the hedgerow. It's quite an iconic characteristic, so I don't necessarily want to now put green walls, but maybe having those little pockets of green space down on the ground floor, where the path really widens, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that wide. I also was considering, let me grab this photo right here, having benches embedded into the little pockets of green space, and because it's along the roadside, the vegetation, if there was, say, a road collision, God forbid, the vegetation would block a lot of any vehicle collision into a person that is sitting on a bench, because we are designing on a road. Obviously the pathways of the road is where I'm saying the intervention's going to be, but definitely have to be more safe than sorry. So I think having it built up with vegetation, people can still sit and have a rest without the risk of being hurt, or at least limiting a person getting hurt. For some talk with my lecturer, I discovered that I can't eradicate buses or like traffic in general from the space. Well, I can remove general traffic but not buses, because it's a direct route to Leeds City bus station, and I think that would just be more of a hindrance than a benefit if I was to take out the roads completely. So what I want to do is to, so I really liked this intervention here. You might be able to see it there. So I'll show you this one first, and I'll show you this. So this is just an example that I found. It's a bus stop, it's got that little bit of greenery, but it's connected with a bike rental, and I thought that was quite a nice idea. So instead of eradicating buses, maybe connect both the bus stop and bike stands to almost influence people to get on a bike, because it's more convenient it being there. oh, I can just jump on a bike, there's plenty of bikes there, I can rent one, and it's quick and easy instead of waiting for the bus. Obviously the buses are quite regular, so that's not necessarily an issue, but I think having it there as an option right next to a bus stop will influence people to get bikes more than catch a bus. But obviously we've got to still have that access for people who can't use a bike and who are less able. So my first idea was to have maybe a water intervention here. There's a statue there currently, and it's of a man holding a beer barrel, but I read up on it and it represents community, so I think it's important to keep it there, but maybe shift it in a more suitable space for it to better be looked at and celebrated. My first thought was to have it bob standard in the middle, with some water interventions, benches surrounding it, trees. This is a scribble, it's not my best illustration, but it's just to get my idea on paper. And this space here, maybe just a row of trees. But then I thought, well, I want to influence people to go up, up here. And I think all these interventions kind of blocking that line of direction. So after some reflection, I'm thinking about maybe still having the pockets of green space, but maybe using this sort of paving and maybe use a darker paving in the direction of I want people to go. It's still just a first thought at the moment, and not set in stone, and I need to do some more sketching, but that's just some reflection on that. So this is St John's car park. So what I was thinking was maybe some urban farming. So I thought of this idea because through research it's quite a deprived area. So what I wanted to do is to create an urban farming that almost works as a food bank, and people can get together, they can sit and socialise, have a bit of fun while planting, learning about plants, picking fruit and veg. I think that really gives that community aspect. And a second idea of mine was to create a almost park. A good case study is Park and Play in Copenhagen. I visited it, and on top of the car park it's quite literally a play area, and it's really successful, and I when I went there I loved it. I thought it was a great way to utilise space, and I think that's probably a great space for people to play. It's right by the shopping, well, it's on top of the shopping centre. So once kids get a bit bored of following their mums and dads around shopping, they can have a bit of a break and play, because the nearest park, as in with actual like play equipment, not necessarily an open field, I want to say Hyde Park, which is a good 35-minute walk, I would say, from the hedgerow. So I think having a park there might be a nice idea. So thank you again for watching this vlog, and if you got through to the end, thank you so much, you are a real trooper, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Thank you, bye.